Thank you, everyone. We'll proceed on to our next session. We are already slightly delayed. Everyone, please get settled.
Hi, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the last session for the day. I'm really glad to see so many of you here because it gives me a feeling that I'm not alone. So all of you too believe that nobody reads documentation. All right. Okay, is this statement true? That no one reads documentation? I'm sure all of us have heard this statement from our engineering managers. Anyways, nobody reads documentation, but it is part of our BOM. So please create one user's guide, admin guide, an operator's guide and whatnot, because it has to be shipped with the product. So we have given 80 hours. Please go ahead and create one. They do believe that we have a magic wand. We can get this up in 80 hours or 100 hours, whatever they allocate. Without even consulting us, without taking an estimate, they do this and, I mean, it happens always. All right. And so let us see whether it is really true, whether no one reads documentation. If all of us agree, nobody reads documentation, then why are we writing? For whom are we writing? Then why corporates are spending so much of effort? And yeah, we have a job as tech writers. Why do they engage us? And why documents are being created? Even if you buy a, say, for instance, a small ointment, you get a pamphlet coming along with it. But how many of us really bother to read that? Okay, let's understand why we are not reading it, or even our users, why they are not reading the documentation. People usually read novels, newspapers, blogs, and forwards in whatever form it is, but not documentation, for sure. And basically, these are used only whenever it is needed. It's not read right at the first instance. Actually, when I did a dry run with my team, I asked them, do you really read documentation? I had real honest answers, I should say. One person said, yeah, I started reading documentation after becoming a tech writer. That was very encouraging. And the other person said, I really don't read it. In fact, I recently bought a TV. I was looking for one particular switch. I wasn't sure. I was struggling for some time, then I went ahead and looked into the manual. So they are honest answers because the other person said, yeah, I think I know how to use it, so I don't bother to open the manual that comes along with it. So let's see what's a reality check. Yeah, basically users are consulting documentation, but it is not being read from preface to index. That's a truth, and we need to accept it as well. So, but what is happening is we keep designing documentation and organizing content to be read rather than to be consulted. That's what we are doing right now. So what we need to do is we need to basically move away from traditional documentation to another form, which is basically a targeted document, and why we should do it. Let's see in the following slides. Basically, there is a big difference between consulting an information source and reading it. When we say we are reading something, reading a novel or reading an article, reading can take hours or days, and you need to allocate some time for it, maybe a particular place as well. You can't just do it as and when you need it. Whereas consulting, it takes only minutes or seconds, and consulting would take at the time of performing a task. Basically, when you're doing something, you want to refer to something. So that is what consulting is all about. So the relationship between consultation and productivity. What is happening is, whenever we spend some time in consulting a content, basically it should help the user to accomplish his task faster. First of all, he should be able to find the information. If he finds it, then he'll be able to do his task much faster. And it is going to, in turn, enhance his productivity. What's happening is, every time the user consults document, there is a pause. It may be a smaller duration or a bigger duration, depending on the information that he is looking for. So there is a pause. So that definitely affects his productivity or the task, whatever he is doing. Every time the user, he struggles to find information, then there is a longer pause. Then there is a big hit on the productivity for sure. So that is when basically a comment, a generic sweeping comment is passed. Documentation is pretty bad. I'm not able to find any information. We would have written pages and pages of say any manual or online help or whatever it is, but they'll say no, it's not good. One sweeping comment. Just because one user wasn't able to find one information, this is what the feedback that we get. Every time the user fails to find the information, what happens? Some of them are really lazy, and of course they get frustrated if they don't find the information, so immediately they call customer support. That number they'll definitely find. So they'll call customer support. Then otherwise, some of them, what they do is, they find an alternate way on their own. Either they check with peers. They are so lazy to refer to anything. It's better to ask someone. Even we do it, don't we? When we are using any tools, we could have go to help and read it, know how to fix something. No, we'll just turn around and ask, hey, have you used this feature? I'm stuck, can you just help me? The same thing happens with our users as well. Or some of them go to social media, blogs. So what's the solution? So how are we going to reduce the time that is spent on consultation, and how are we going to help our users to find information faster, access information faster? The solution is having targeted content. So what do we mean by targeted content? Let's see the difference. What we are right now creating is a traditional documentation, and let's see what targeted content is all about. And why is it that we have to move to targeted content? Basically, traditional documentation, it values comprehensiveness. When I say comprehensiveness, what we do, most of you probably are doing it, we try to cover everything starting from scratch. It's not that we don't start from one particular level. Because what we think is, we treat all our users on the same level, and we start from scratch explaining about each and everything. So so that our document is comprehensive. So what happens? Because of this, our documentation is really bulky, and the number of pages, it's really high. On the contrary, targeted content, it requires a good knowledge about the users, their needs, pain points, and use cases. Basically, we need to know exactly what type of users are we writing for. Are we writing for a novice or an intermediate or an advanced user? What is happening now is we are just creating one guide. It's like one solution will fit for all, sort of a thing. So this is the guide, okay, use it. If you are an administrator, use it. If you are an operator, you use this. We are not really looking at, is the operator an experienced one or a novice user? It applies to every user. When you prepare targeted content, you are going to target only a particular group of people or particular group of audience, and your content is going to be developed based on that. Second one is it values consistency, traditional document, throughout the life of the product. People who have worked on multiple releases of the same product would be able to appreciate it. What happens is, you work on release, say 1.0, that is a new version, then 2.0 comes. So what you have to do, there is a context sensitive help given there for a particular screen. So for every screen you have to maintain that. So that is what the engineering team expects, or even even the doc team believes. No, we have to follow consistency. Why? If the UI is so intuitive, you can just skip that. Why to give information about it? if the UI is going to be so good, we need not get into the details actually. So here targeted content, the focus is on the user and not on the product. Provides specific information when and where necessary rather than any generic information about all the aspects of the product. Then the targeted, traditional documentation, it handholds the user throughout every element of the UI. Whereas here, it doesn't document the obvious or the easy to understand elements. Then again, traditional document, it tries to compensate the bad UI design. I'm sure all of us would have had experience on this. Our engineering team will come and say, even if we point out something is not good, they'll say, can you just include one note? Can you just include one attention? Or one, something, do something, no? We don't have time to fix this. So it tries to basically compensate for the bad UI design, whereas here usability tests are done to enhance the user experience by filling the obvious gaps. So you really know before the product goes out of your hand, you know exactly in what shape it is, what are all things that have been basically there, and what ought to be there is there. And again here, content is aimed at novice users. That's what we assume. Everybody is like a beginner. So we address so when an experienced user refers our document, he's going to get irritated. Why am I being told about all this? I'm looking for one particular information, I'm not able to find it. So here content is meant for either advanced or the appropriate level of users. So here comes the challenges in moving to the target content model. Let's see how are we going to do that. There are a lot of challenges. We can't, as a documentation team, we won't be able to just decide this overnight and do that, because we need to get a buy-in from our user advocates. Our user advocates are first product marketing, then comes the tech support and the other stakeholders in the organization. Unless we have the blessings of the product marketing, we won't be able to implement anything. Take my word for it. I have had enough experience in that. You need their support. First person to approach for any change in your documentation is your product marketing. You need to get their buy-in, they'll do the rest of the selling for you. So you need to convince them, there ends your job. Then actually one more set of people who is very important to the documentation team is the tech support people, because they are our first customers, I would say. So you need to get their buy-in as well, because they are the ones who face the irate customers whenever a call comes in. So they are the ones who refer our document to respond to the user. So if they are not able to find information, so their input is also very important. So we need to get their consensus whenever we try to make any changes. Then how do you go about collecting information about your various users? This is very important, and you need to understand their needs, what are their needs, what are the pain points, and the environment in which they are using the document. Actually, I had an experience in one of my product lines where, of course, this was done by our counterparts. They had just gone ahead and created HTML pages for user documentation. Whereas actually these documents are being used by operators where there is no internet connectivity in the plant. So how was he supposed to access those HTML pages? He could never access it, because we wanted to deliver because that time HTML was the biggest thing. So they introduced it. We are delivering everything in HTML, but nobody was reading it. So and it wasn't at all useful to them when they were looking for information. And you need to ensure your stakeholders are your critical reviewers. Meaning to say, your product marketing, your tech support, make sure anything that you create, all these people are your critical reviewers. You need to mark it as critical reviewer and send it out, and then you can expect some response. You need to, right in the beginning, get their approval that they'll review whatever you are going to circulate. Then biggest challenge is whenever you are bringing in a change, you need to meet your product schedule, product release schedule. You need to do all these changes first of all get a buy-in, then implement this, then come up with a schedule, and it should match with your product release. Otherwise, I mean, nobody is going to appreciate all your efforts. Okay, here is the workflow for the target content model. The ones that are highlighted over here in green are the ones which plays a major role in creating target content model. We'll see each one of them in detail in the following slides. Basically, you need to define your users, you need to know your users, their pain points and the environment in which they are using. Please ensure that you get this information, and that is very essential. Then you have to keep questioning your SME if you have one, that is your subject matter expert, or the whomever you are interacting with, either your development engineering or your testing team, whomever you are interacting with to collect information. Keep questioning them about all this, then only you will have a clarity. There are several other ways in which you can collect information about your users. Basically, VOC is voice of customer. It is usually collected by the product marketing. So do get in touch. That is why I said product marketing is our first contact. So get in touch with them and ask them, have you collected a VOC from our existing users, and what are their comments, what we need to basically change, and tech support and sales engineers. These are the people who are going to tell us who are our actual users, because being the part of the documentation team, we will never ever be able to talk to our end users. We can only through these people we'll be able to reach out to them. And of course, you can get more information through users group forums, technical support sessions, by participating in sprint demos. Then there are some corporates which have the facility of users can comment on the documentation directly. So you should go through each and every comment to understand what is their feedback, what is their need, and then that will give you a good input what you need to include in your document. And then you conduct a task analysis, because this is very, very important. Unless you really know what task your user has to perform, you wouldn't know exactly what you are supposed to document. So be sure about what your user has to perform. You need to ask the following questions for yourself. What are the top goals of the user? What role he has to do? Because user goals are not based on the product features. Product may have many features, but each user's goal is different, task is different. Then what are essential tasks the user must do, because you need to identify, and that needs to be documented. And what are the non-essential? Either you can include or you can probably exclude them if it is non-essential. You need not give priority to that. Then you need to come up with a plan. This plan helps us to document whatever we have agreed upon with our internal stakeholders. Basically the first two steps, that is the audience analysis and the task analysis, will serve as an input for this. So you need to start from scratch to identify what the information users really need, then address the main areas. If it is going to be an update, then understand based on the feedback and whatever information that you have collected, then you need to ensure that all that goes back into your next release documentation. And also you need to identify the various formats. Depending on whatever you have done so far, you need to identify what are all deliverables, user assistance deliverables that you are going to deliver. Either it can be PDF or whatever it is, visual aid or inline UI text or context sensitive help. So what you need to do is you need to document all this in your plan so that everybody in the organization knows these are all the things that we can expect from the documentation team when everything is ready. Otherwise people will come and tell you, can you create this video in a week's time? Week's time is no jokes, you can't create one video in a week's time, definitely. So you need to allocate, of course this is a very important thing, you need to allocate time and also document it in your plan, usability testing in your plan, and so that user experience scores better. And ascertain, okay, if it is going to be an update, that is an upgrade or an update for the current one, then you can decide what can be deleted, what can be reused, and what can be rewritten. And also what you need to do is, every time you come up with a plan or something, make sure first of all you get it reviewed within your team first, then with your supervisor, then with the rest of the stakeholders, so that everybody is on the same page, so that everybody knows what is it that we are planning to do and what is it that we are going to deliver. And also, whenever you send something out for review, make sure that you are closing it with the comments incorporated, and you also circulate this back to the reviewers, so that, because people are really interested in seeing whether when they give comment, whether you have incorporated the comment, if they want to see it in the document. So make sure that they get an updated version of it. Let it be a plan or a document, this is very important. And also create a schedule for developing the target content for the current release, if it is going to be a new version, and because you are not going to take up everything at one go, so plan it in a phased manner. All right, you need to schedule the usability testing. How many of you are involved in usability testing? Oh, very few hands. Okay. Basically, if you aren't, I think it is a good thing to get involved in, because it gives you a lot of opportunity to perform all the tasks whatever the user is will do using the application. So as a user, you get the user's perspective by doing this testing. So please do get involved in this and try to use the application, and identify the areas that are intuitive and which doesn't require any documentation. So you need not even include it in your document. And then identify the options and screens which are confusing, which are misleading, and go back and let your engineering team know that they need to work on that. Okay, what are the benefits? It basically adds value to whatever we deliver. It helps us to gain users' perspective. Then it basically we are walking in users' shoes. Then only we'll know what are the pain points, because otherwise you will never understand unless you use the application, do a usability testing. You are not going to understand what are all the real pain points. Okay, then we need to definitely review the user interface messages. But why do you think we should be doing it? Why should technical writers do a review of the UI messages?
So that you don't have to document that part.
Sorry?
So that you don't have to document that part. If the UI is intuitive enough, you might not have to document.
Okay, okay. Actually, it is basically to help ourselves, because what happens is most of the time we get to see all these application. When we install it and start documenting it, you really get some nasty surprises, because people you get to see long unwinding sentences which runs to 2-3 lines, and and you are forced to include it in your document. So it serves as a value add also. So it's better we do a usability test and log them. Maybe each corporate has their own way of logging these things and tracking them. So you can just do it. And it serves as the proof of for the test we have done. It serves as a metric at the closure of the project. Okay, we move on to design and developing content. You need to, these are the 3 points just you need to keep in mind. Basically, we'll talk about this, process step a bit late in the following slides. Also make sure that you get all your documentation reviewed by your peers for these elements like consistency, accuracy, because it is always good to get another pair of eyes seeing what you have written. As an author, you will end up reading only what you want to see rather than what is over there. Last but not the least in this one, this usability testing in the process flow, we need to make sure that our document undergoes usability testing with the development team as well as the testing team. You have to tell them use it as an administrator, use it as an installer. Read my instructions and try performing the task. Tell me if you are able to do it. If you are not able to do it, then means something is missing. So this will just get you the information whether all your content has gone into the documentation and what are the gaps. So now we'll see what should we do to create targeted content. You need to design content for reference, for consultation and to complement search, as because content is being referred and consulted on need basis. So we need to design them to meet this purpose. All right, we need to follow the principle every page is page 1. This is EPPO. This is basically based on topic-based authoring. This EPPO is a term coined by Mark Baker, who is the author of the book Every Page is Page 1. So basically he says how do you go about classifying the topic and what do you include and what do you exclude. All of us know what is a topic, and it is basically of two kinds. One is building block topic and the other one is presentational topic. Building block is, it is like, it is designed to be assembled into something larger. I can give you basically it can exist separately, but to function it has to be a part of a bigger picture. Example would be a car brake. A car brake can be in an automobile store, there separately on the shelf, but it has to be part of a car to be functional. So it is something like that. Building block topic is something similar to that. Then presentational topics, EPPO topics belong to the second category, and it is basically designed to accommodate and facilitate non-linear reading behavior. That is consulting it as and when necessary. Example would be documentation for Chrome. If you take it, it is basically called as help articles. They are not called as documentation or user manual or online help. And wiki, it is a natural EPPO medium. It is not, if you see, structured alphabetically, or each of them stand separately and they function separately. And again we can take a recipe for a food item. Introduction is the concept topic, then ingredients list is a reference one, then preparation is a task one. Basically the second category, that is this presentational topic, it can be included in a hierarchical help system as well, and they can be a standalone as well. Yeah, these are the characteristics of EPPO topics. They are basically self-contained, and it has a specific and limited purpose, and it conforms to a type. When we say type, for example, I can give an API reference. Basically API reference, it doesn't just contain a line of code, it also contains the relevant information which the say the engineers would be able to relate to. Then it establishes context. When we say context, here is an example of Google App Engine documentation. Basically it talks about how do you go about storing data in a web application, and how do you go about doing this introduction. No, it is, if without this any user will be lost. You can just read through it. I'm not going to read it completely. This just gives an exact introduction to the user, saying how Google App Engine would work. And it assumes the reader is qualified. The topic is meant for a qualified reader. Audience analysis helps in determining the skill level. For instance, recipe for a food item. When we read a recipe, it doesn't tell us how do you break an egg. It just tells break an egg. And it doesn't tell you how do you whisk flour. It is assumed that the user will know how to whisk a flour, and they don't tell you how do you go about holding a knife and cutting a vegetable. They say just cut vegetables, mix this. So that's how it is. So it stays on one level. EPPO topic stands on one level, meaning to say it is meant for a targeted audience and it stays at that. It doesn't deviate from there. Here is an example from WordPress Codex on using the themes. And also one of the key elements of ePPO design is it links richly, it connects you to the relevant topic, not unnecessary references but exact references. Then the information design is basically, it's built around two propositions, and it basically helps the reader to, helps the reader to find the exact information what they are looking for. If at all they need additional information, it directs them to that page. Okay, now we'll see how do you go about developing ePPO topics. So far we saw what are the characteristics. Basically there are some do's and don'ts. Whatever we are doing in targeted documentation, we shouldn't be doing it over here. That is the crux of the don'ts over here. And all the characteristics, whatever we saw, the 7 of them will be, you need to apply all of them to develop ePPO topics. All right. ePPO is a design pattern. You may ask, why should we be following it, or why is it? I mean, what is it? It is just a design pattern. It is not a fixed format. You can use any authoring platform to do this, FrameMaker, CMS, or whatever, you name it, whatever, I mean, you can just use it. And the output also, it is up to you how you want to create it. And most of us are working in agile environment, so how do you go about using ePPO in agile environment? You can deliver ePPO topics for each sprint. This really helps actually. For additional requirements coming up at later date, you don't go back and rework on whatever content that has been done. You can just do it only for the new ones that are coming up. ePPO topics, again, they are organized bottom up, because it doesn't believe in the traditional tree structure, hierarchical one. It basically, that is the important thing of, important feature of ePPO content. Okay, these are the benefits. Of course, all the benefits are basically, some of them we already discussed. It helps the reader to find the specific information. As the topic establishes its context, it is self-contained and has a specific and limited purpose. Basically the reader is consulting the topic in parts and pieces. He is not reading it completely. And it follows a consistent topic type, and it stays at a particular level. Okay, these are the best practices to follow when you are applying, when you want to implement ePPO topics for your documentation purpose. Follow a concept, procedure, reference model to help the users, and include the relevant information, only relevant information to perform the task. While describing a task, explain why a feature in the application is used, related back to the user's goals. As a writer, you may have a complete knowledge about the application, but don't try to pass on every bit of information that you have to the reader. It is not essential for him. Just provide only what information he needs to perform his task. You can use infographics, screenshots, demos wherever necessary, and assume the user has appropriate skills to perform. And definitely do not add content to supplement bad UI design. Never ever agree to this arrangement with your engineering team. And you can collaborate with the DE team and constantly discuss about how you can go about improving the UI. Because most of the time, you can go back, that's what we do, we go back and log it so that it gets tracked and closed. You can decide on the screens, windows that require minimal or no documentation. You can exclude it. Wherever it is bad, you make sure that something is being done and it is tracked to closure. And include perform perform usability testing, and raise usability bugs. Whatever you find, record it formally. Otherwise, we'll get unnoticed. We'll definitely go unnoticed. As it is, people say, yeah, you need to just copy and paste content. What is it that you are writing? So we can just tell them, see, these are the things that we found out. These are all pending. You can show them the log basically. And you can assist the DE team in writing the UI text and error messages, and let the DE and the testing team conduct usability testing. Make sure that this happens. This really helps. This really helps. You'll be able to see the results once your document is released. The number of bugs reported from customer sites, number of calls to tech support, all this gets reduced. We have seen it in real actually. So it really helps. All right, here is a list of books that I referred for this presentation. Mark Baker's Every Page is Page 1. It's really worth reading it. Yeah, I mean it. Reading it. You can consult it when you are implementing it. And also Steve's Rocket Surgery Made Easy. That's a very interesting book. Maybe over a weekend you can finish reading it. It's really interesting because with a lot of funny images and big fonts, you can just finish it in 2 days. It's really worth reading it if you are going to take up usability and wants to get into usability testing. Of course, couple of other links from our STC website and the Intercom magazine. And that's all from my side. And any questions? Yeah, sure.
So I'm coming from I write for a system administrator. So how do you assume whether you're writing for a novel or for an experienced one? Because our product is still new to them, so they're system administrators.
And when you are taking up your requirements, who are your end users and what kind of users? What is their profile, exact profile? Are they going to be so understand what is it. So in that, if your audience are going to be diverse, say novice, and they are going to be highly experienced with 10 years, then maybe your document should have different sections for them. At least initially, maybe it can have, like if you are this, go to this section. If you are this, you go to that section. So even we have done this for different types of users. You can do it even in online help as well as in your printed document, in whichever format you are doing it.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it was a very interesting session, and I hope everybody will start reading the documentation before they give it out. So please read your work before you give it out. So that is the whole gist of the session that we just had. So I would like to present Vaijeyanthi with this momentum and certificate. Thank you very much.